I have an update for you regarding Newmar and the non-compliant VIN badging on their luxury motorhomes.
Why would you rebadge your coaches if you didn't have a problem?
Hi, I'm Liz. I'm an RV consumer advocate. Last year, I brought you the case of Brian and Jennifer, who were stopped at the Canadian border trying to import their Newmar motorhome into the U.S. No VIN badging was found on their motorhome, and he was slapped with a huge fine.
I can't sell an RV that doesn't have a VIN on it, and now I've got this $660,000 fine.
It turns out this is likely a widespread problem at Newmar and potentially other RV manufacturers. VIN, as you know, is the vehicle identification number. Without correct VIN badging, you're not street legal.
So strike one is there's no VIN on this vehicle. Maybe I'm the only vehicle with no VIN. Seems peculiar. Strike two is the stickers that Newmar is using on all of their vehicles are not compliant. Strike three is where they are putting the stickers is also not compliant. If you're driving around with a vehicle without a VIN, it's a problem. Imagine if that vehicle gets stolen, or you get into a car accident, or if anything happens and now there's no VIN on the vehicle, then there's questions to be answered.
If you missed the first two videos I did about Brian and Jennifer's case, I'll put the link here. Today I interview Scott Buchanan of Southwest Luxury Coaches. He has some inside information about Brian and Jennifer's case and what Newmar is and is not doing in response.
I've been doing this business for 25 years, and I do between 200 and 250 coaches a year, and I sell all brands, all right? Could be Marathons, Liberties, Prevos, Newells, lots and lots of Newmars. So the motorhomes that I deal with are usually between $200,000 and $2 million. I want to stress to everybody out there, nothing that Brian or myself did we do wrong. Casey Tubman was part of this process through Brian getting charged for fraudulently bringing this coach across, and he has not accepted any responsibility for it. Brian had bought his motorhome from the Hitch House in Ontario in 22, and he paid upwards of $1.6 million.
Scott and his dealership are in Arizona. Last year, he agreed to buy Brian and Jennifer's coach, which was in Canada. After getting an inspection and paperwork done on it,
I then wire my money in benefit of Brian, the $660,000.
As you may remember, the coach did make it all the way to Arizona.
8 or 10 days later, I get an email from the border agent with a notice of recall saying you have to deliver the vehicle back to the border.
To Detroit border.
To the Detroit border for a NHTSA inspection.
On the way back, the driver hit a low bridge, and so the coach sustained a little bit of damage in the top right corner.
Once the coach was delivered back to the border, we had to give all documentation. At that point, I'm out $660,000 plus transportation on the coach, plus batteries that I had put in the coach. I started accumulating expenses on the coach. Then once we had communication that the coach was not legal in the United States, or the badging was not proper in the United States or Canada, they would not allow the coach to come back into the United States. Brian had to come and pick the motorhome up. The badge that was there is supposed to be a self-destructing sticker, or it's supposed to be riveted on. Clearly, this was not the case. The other thing was, when the coach was inspected, there's supposed to be, I believe, a 17-digit, but if you would listen to Casey Tubman, the president of Newmar, he says that there is a 5-digit or 6-digit number on the front frame. There's a bunch of times where he's pointed that out. This is where it is to me, to NHTSA agents, to federal agents, and this coach did not have it. This coach did not have 6 digits or 17 digits. I called Casey Tubman. I sent him the letter of the law, and he said to me, let me get down to the bottom of this, right? I thought I was talking to the right person. I'm talking to the president of Newmar. I had told Casey, this is not a Brian problem. This is not a Scott Buchanan problem. This is a Newmar problem. You have badging that is not proper. This coach was purchased for $1.6 million for the Hitch House, and it didn't have the proper badging according to customs and DOT law.
After my first 2 videos came out, I heard from Newmar owners and owners of other brands that they too were missing VIN badging or their VIN badging was non-compliant. So this is possibly a wide-reaching problem throughout the RV industry.
I think at first Casey Tubman was confused because through our communications he kept saying, Scott, people are driving back and forth every single day going on vacation. And I'm like, I understand that, Casey. People can do that. This is when somebody legally tries to export their coach for sale into the United States. And this could affect a lot of dealers. Canadians come across the border, they want to trade their motorhomes in. You have to go through legal documentation, export, brokerage. He just never grasped this. And he kept saying that.
And this is not just an export issue either. As you'll see later in the video, people want and expect correct VIN badging on their vehicles.
I'm talking with Brian every single day, like, what are we going to do? Brian started sending out demand letters. He sent demand letters out to the Hitch House, to Newmar, and he wasn't asking for anything except for, help me. Here I am just stuck trying to help Brian out to get Newmar to stand up and say, hey, we had a problem and we're going to help you out. And nothing. I mean, Brian's video, if anybody goes back and watches it, and hopefully Liz will post it again, it's an honest truth of every single thing that happened in this process. But he's just not grasping the situation. People are driving back and forth. And me and Brian, we don't know what to do. And I've talked to Brian a couple times about, hey, you need to make me whole, right? This is going on for months. Meanwhile, the coach was sitting at Brian's house. When the driver was driving it down, it had a problem with the steering mechanism where the steering wheel was stuck up forward. After the first time it got seized, I called the Hitch House because Brian had to drive the steering wheel when it was straight up, and Brian had a warranty on the coach. He had sent out a demand letter to the Hitch House. And I called Chris McBee, can he bring this coach in for warranty? And he says, if he pulls the demand letter, we will allow it to come on our facility. Brian wasn't going to do that because he wanted them to do something. Somebody. About 3 or 4 weeks goes by. Casey says to me, have Brian go through a different port of entry and drive the motorhome and say he's going on vacation. Because this has been his whole premise is that these motor people are driving back and forth across the border and not having any problems. When you drive back and forth across the border, they don't check your paperwork. It's only when you export or you import a motorhome into Canada or export it from Canada into the United States. And then when we get it across the border, Casey said we'll get the proper badging for it and then we'll get a U.S. title for the coach. I was the person that had to call Brian. He had been in contact with Casey Tubman too. After he sent the demand letters, zero communication from Newmar. Their attorneys never even contacted him back. I think he got one communication. It was months. Help me out. I mean, the guy's going through stress. Brian did that. He agreed to do that. When he gets to Buffalo, he gets flagged. He says he's going on vacation, and then they bring him into an office, and then Brian tells him actually what's happening. The customs guy said, we have a NHTSA agent on staff, so let's see if we can't get you through the border. I called Casey Tubman. I said, listen, the coach has been stopped at the border. Casey Tubman knew exactly the day this was happening. He knew everything, right? I had communication with him through this whole process. I was in communication with Brian. He was calling me and he said, listen, a NHTSA agent's going to be here in about 20 minutes. Tell Casey to answer the phone call. They had, I think he said, 4 or 5 agents. He put Casey Tubman on speakerphone and they talked to Casey about the whole thing. There's no badging on the coach. The compliance sticker behind the driver's seat, the guy just peeled it right off. And it says it has to be riveted or has to be self-destructing. It's not. Casey asked the guy, what should we be doing? And he said, I enforce the law. You're the manufacturer. You're kind of basically supposed to know the law. Casey had called me and said, get the coach back to the Hitch House and we'll rebadge it. As soon as we hung up, I get a text from Brian that says, they're charging me for fraudulently bringing the motorhome into the United States. And then I called Casey Tubman. I said, this is the whole time I've been saying this is a Newmar problem. This is not a Scott Buchanan who purchased the motorhome problem, right? It's not a Brian problem. He bought a motorhome that's not badged. How many agents had to tell Brian, this is not compliant? Well, then he gets charged for $660,000 for fraudulently bringing back the motorhome. In one of his statements, he said that this 6-digit is just a courtesy from Spartan to Newmar to take the box and put it on the chassis. If that's the case, how do we even know that this coach that has 0 digits on it has the right box that was put on it? We're talking about 6 or 7 federal agents have told us that 6 digits is not compliant. Now the 22, there were 0 digits. This can't be the only coach. There has to be more. Newmar has to have a procedure. They do so many coaches. Clearly, there's got to be not only one coach out there, there's got to be a bunch of them out there. It's going to be a problem sooner or later. I will tell everybody this. Newmar just launched to all their franchisees. There are 27 motorhomes, and they show all the models and everything, that the changes that they did. They had a whole segment where they talked about that they were in compliance this whole time, that it's not a Newmar thing. You're fine to drive this motorhome. But what they did do on their 27 motorhomes is they rebadged them. They've now got a tag, which Customs was looking for, a 17-digit riveted, plated tab on the coach, on the frame. Why would you rebadge your coaches if you didn't have a problem? The other thing is when they talked to the franchisees, because I know a lot of the owners, right? They said that they're doing this because, not because they were not compliant, they're doing it because customers are asking for it. And they're also said something about that if you want to have a VIN tag done on yours, so if your motorhome doesn't have proper badging, you can go to a Newmar store, and I was told that you had to pay $100 for this tag, and they put a metal tag on your frame which makes you fully compliant. And this is from a person that was at the show. He owns a Newmar franchise. So I believe the information to be true.
The new VIN metal riveted plates, as far as I know, are in compliance, but Newmar has used and continues to use paper tags inside, stuck onto wallpaper.
We have this badge that Newmar has sent out to us, but the last thing we're going to do with this agent is put this on the coach. I don't believe it's my job to basically put Newmar's badging on their coaches when they have a problem with it. Because if I did, I'd probably be sitting here talking to Liz in jail. Most of their interior tags are not compliant. There could be possibly thousands of coaches out there, all the way from 25s down, that are not properly badged or have lost their badging. When those coaches get hot, what happens? The glue comes off. They just peel off. It's sticky tape. Even franchisees, they laugh about it. They're like, oh, we have to glue them back down all the time. They're not on hard surfaces. They stick them right to the side of wallpaper. All the Prevost manufacturers have riveted badges and badges on their frames and engines. Just don't know why Newmar couldn't do the same, right? And follow the letter of the law. It's just a simple fix for them to do. I think that they would do that right away. Thousands, right? I mean, I laughed. I called a buddy yesterday that does Prevost, and he laughed about every Newmar that comes in that has their badging because they're stuck with double-sided sticky tape. So that law came into effect in 2010. Recently, I bought a 2015 Newmar Essex. I bought it from a gentleman, and I sold it to a guy that I do business with. I wholesaled it to him. He took it to a Freightliner store, came in to check the coach in, and she couldn't find VIN on it where it's supposed to be. Behind the seat that Freightliner could not find, there's nothing. All right, there's no badging behind the seat. Can't find a VIN number on the coach. All right, this is another Newmar problem. Now, he has called me and said, I want you to buy the coach back. He just doesn't want the headache with it. And I told him, I said, hey, according to Newmar, they say that it's compliant. So I'm expecting that I have to purchase the coach back. What concerns me is that when you call Newmar and you ask them for a badge, they just send it out to you and expect you to take a sticker that I have to send to the broker that's a federal sticker and just peel it off and go stick it on the side of the motorhome. And that's what the NHTSA agent was saying. that their documentation inside the motorhome could be made with a laser printer. So Newmar says that they're compliant with all their badging, but NHTSA and US Customs disagrees. Through this process, every day I get people that call me about buying or selling their motorhome, and they say to me, have you heard about this Newmar deal? They ask, like, how could this happen? I'm one of the biggest out there, so I talk to so many people that own stores, all right, that work at stores. A lot of stores, when this first hit out on the first part of this, have lost deposits. It's cost the industry a lot of money. And I want to say, I love Newmars. I sell them all the time. They're one of the best made coaches. So I'm not dissing the product. I'm just dissing what's happened or telling my story about this. People that own Newmar franchises, everybody has said, this thing just needed to go away from the get-go. This is dumb. If you look at Newmar's earnings this year, they've plummeted. And I don't know if it has to do with anything of this, the VIN tag problem, but it's something that needs to be addressed. I had not got my money back from Brian. I told Brian, probably this is the third time, I need to be made whole. This is not a me thing. This is a Newmar and a you thing. And nothing. I never got my money back. After this had all happened, I called Casey Tubman up. I said, are you going to participate in any of the losses on this? And he told me, no, I'm not. That's the last communication that I've ever had with Casey Tubman. Now I've been sitting out for 16 months. I had to start litigation in Arizona against Brian. $660,000. Now I'm up to like $760,000. No communication from Newmar. December 3rd, I got a text message from Brian. We had talked every day until I served him the lawsuit. On December 3rd, I got a text from him, and it said, Newmar has finally decided to help badge the coach and assist in getting the coach across the border. This coach had already went through 2 book changes. It's a book value. All coaches have a native book to them. Every 2 months, it either goes up, but most of the time it goes down. Just the 2 book changes were 20% that they had hit. The devalue of the coach. I had my attorney reach out to his. We said, we're not taking the coach back. It's been too long. After 16 months, I don't want the coach anymore. It's been devalued a lot. About 3 weeks ago, I reached out to the Hitch House, Chris McKee, and I asked him if I could come take a look at the coach because I had heard it had been rebadged. Chris denied me access to the coach. I called him on a second day. Could you please send me pictures of the rebadging? He said he would do that. Right after we hung up, I texted him, would you also send me documentation on who has rebadged the coach? Then he sent me a text that said, Ontario Motor Vehicles will not allow me to give you that information. All I'm asking for is pictures of the badging. Through rumors, what I've heard is that Brian goes to court on his fraudulently bringing the coach into the United States at the end of August. They're waiting to see if those charges get dropped for the 660. What I've heard is that Newmar, once he gets done with that, Newmar is going to assist in bringing that coach across the border into the United States. I don't know what they're going to do. Are they going to try to hand me a coach that I don't want now? Are they going to bring it back to the Newmar factory? That's what I have no idea about. I wake up every single night at 2 o'clock in the morning and I think about a motorhome that I should never be thinking about, right? It's messing with my life. It's messing with my business, all right? I'm a self-funded company. I'm out $750,000 and every time I go and see my attorney, just add another $10,000 to it. This has not only cost me a lot of stress and a lot of troubles. I will not buy a Canadian vehicle at this point. And over the 25 years, I've bought a lot of them. So this has cost me financial because look at me now. I'm stuck. $750,000 out on a coach that came from Canada with no help from Newmar, no help from anybody. I want Newmar to step up and take some responsibility for one problem. If it's one problem, it's one problem. I don't believe it to be one problem. I'm still wondering every day why I'm in this situation. I buy Newmars. I buy their parts. All right? I'm buying parts from them every day. And they're not standing behind me. They're not standing behind Brian, the owner. I mean, come on. You're a $1 billion corporation. Stand behind your people.
Heads up, if you're wondering which RVs to buy and which ones to run away from, I have an RV buyer's guide that I wrote surveying my audience of over 200,000 people. It reviews over 200 brands broken down by years and models. The RV buyer's guide comes in both print and digital format. Click the links below to learn more. And I reached out to Casey Tubman, the president of Newmar, and the top people at Winnebago, which owns Newmar. I got no response from anyone, so I waited a week and reached out to everyone again, and still nothing. The law clearly states that it's the manufacturer's responsibility, not the customer's, to provide proper VIN badging. What do you think Newmar should do to fix their improperly badged motorhomes? And who should pay for all the losses that both Scott and Brian incurred trying to get that motorhome across the border? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.